Morning, everybody. Welcome to this morning's the latest agency management training for the PHMIS version 4.0 release. We're going to cover information that goes along with being an agency manager, agency management team within the HMIS system. This class will cover major agency components, things about agency component setup, agency user management. It is going to cover a lot of the same things that we've seen in the last agency manager training, but it will have a big new section, which is basically for the residential programs. It'll have a large section on the housing inventory setup. Includes configuration, maintenance. I think it's a pretty neat feature that we've released in the system. Then we'll cover some client management tools that you guys have. We have a new one, data export, allows you to export data out of the system. A couple housekeeping notes. We're going to have 2 breaks during the training. It's about 95 slides, so we're probably going to keep you here probably about 2.5 hours. During those breaks, we'll go ahead and have a question and answer session. Hopefully you guys are familiar with your WebEx toolbar. There's basically 2 ways to ask a question. We're going to keep everybody muted. It's a really big class, so we don't have any background noise. If you want to go ahead and ask a verbal question, just go ahead and raise your hand on your toolbar. We'll go ahead and unmute you. You can go ahead and ask it at that time. Also, there's a little question and answer utility. It's a little box, got a little question mark on it. Go ahead and type that in at any time or during the breaks. We'll go ahead and try to get that answered for you. One note with that, if you do mind, it's got a bunch of selections to who you can send the question to. Please select at least host or host and presenters, because if you just send it to the presenter, that's basically going to be sent to me, and I'm kind of busy doing the training, so it might not get answered as fast as you would like. All right, so let's go ahead and let's get started. A couple housekeeping notes, kind of go over these every training just to make sure everybody's aware. HUD data collection rules. Pretty much any HUD-funded programs required to use HMIS. The HMIS system does support data collection for victims of domestic violence. However, any victim service provider, as defined by VAWA, is still prohibited from entering client data into the PHMIS system per applicable federal laws. And we'll have just a little a point on the domestic violence stuff later. Here's the basic class agenda. Pretty much agency manager, user management stuff. Then we'll take a break, come back, and deal with the big housing inventory setup, maintenance kind of section. Then we'll have some high points from the previous 2 trainings we've had, the core and supplemental. Make sure everybody's on the same page, go over the big points. Then finish up with agency manager tools. All right, we'll go into the first section. Each agency consists of 3 basic components within the system, include the agency and all the associated programs and sites. Agencies are always created by DCED staff. The program and site setup can be controlled by the individual organizations in HMIS. Programs are the actual entities where the individual clients are enrolled into and receive services, while sites, make sure everybody understands, sites are basic locations. They're no longer any kind of bucket to put clients in. It's basically a location where your program is administered. Make sure everybody understands that distinction. As you can see here is basically the gold action menu. It's changed a little bit, but for our existing users, most of the same features were there. Agency managers have the ability to search for, look up existing site, agency, and program records in the search for record area. They also have, like I said before, have the ability to create new sites and programs within the create a new record, as well as agency programs and site profiles can also be located on your start page. For regular users, it's just there for informational purposes. For agency managers, it's actually hyperlinked, so you can click on it and actually load that profile. Here's basically the lead agency configuration. This is the agency profile that we create for new agencies. A lot of the information we need to gather from you basically contains name, address information. It also contains a decent amount of information about the organization. It's got grids for, the programs that it administers, the site locations from where those programs are administered, and those are all hyperlinked, so you can just click on them, and it'll immediately load that program. It's a nice kind of little navigation tool. As you see there, we've also added a referral tool, accepting referral by program type tool, and we'll talk about that briefly at the end of this section. Site location, basically when you create a new site, again, it's a location where your program is administered. Contains things like, you got to associate it to your agency, geocode, which is a 6-digit code provided by HUD, site type and housing type. Site type basically tells what kind of services it offers, while the housing type basically tells it's more of like a physical characteristics for that specific site. Whether it's apartments or barracks, or if it's if it's a non-residential service program, you select that as well. And then it has other housekeeping things like basic address, contact, phone number, email information. As you see here for every site, it also has kind of informational grids on it. It basically shows all the programs that are offered at that location. As well as you can see here, here's basically the new inventory. You can find it in a couple places in the system. One is on your start page, but anytime you load it on your start page, it'll automatically go to the review screen, no matter if it's configured or not. When we actually talk about the housing inventory, we actually recommend going through your sites because it's got some smart logic that if you haven't touched it before, it'll take you to the proper setup screen to where you need to begin. And it basically shows the statuses, inventory name, which can be renamed as well, so it's a lot of good information there. Now we're going to go into the program setup. Since clients are directly enrolled into programs, these are the entities that are used to track these clients and services that they have been provided. Pretty much everything that's reported in APR-style reports are all reported on a per-program basis. Programs need to be defined by their program type. It's kind of one of the most important designations for each program, and it kind of tells an overall picture story of what service is being provided. It could be emergency shelter, permanent supportive housing, etc. And each distinct program type that you serve, so if you serve like a shelter and also have some kind of supportive service, you can't have just one program type and throw all the clients in there. Each distinctive program type must have a distinctively and independently configured program, and you need to put those clients into those specific programs. This is the basic program profile. Contains elements such as the name, COC code. When you're doing the name, we do ask that you do something fairly distinctive and descriptive. Just don't put like shelter or permanent supportive housing, because to you, that might be the only one in your agency, but when administrators and DCDs looking at it, there could be, 18 different programs called emergency shelter. So we do ask that you put things like your agency name in it and a county, something that's a little more descriptive of where it is. COC code's basically a drop-down of what COC you're in. Then you got your program type, agency that you attach, as well as configuration type, ad site, as well as the target populations, and we'll kind of go over each of those. One note about the configuration type, there's basically 3 settings, and it kind of describes the number of physical buildings the program is administered from. Either have single site, single building, single site, multiple buildings, or multiple sites. And usually that kind of, the service only, it's probably a single administrative building, but if it's more of a residential, could be a scattered site, you have those choices to best describe how your program is laid out. This is the program type code. It's basically available in the drop-down menu, and it basically, the system has the above program types. Most of them are HUD-defined. We have added some other ones for VA-funded programs such as VASH and GPD, as well as the SSBF. We've got a couple agencies coming online with that. And then we've also added PASS and ESG in there for some funding sources as well. So you need to make sure that you assign the right program type code when you're creating a program, and also checking over your existing ones, making sure they're correct. Now, just a quick note about the Emergency Solutions Grant that's coming out. Like I said before, we have the Emergency Solutions Grant, or ESG program type, in the system. That was currently developed and released only for the 2011 second allotment rollout, which just includes the homelessness prevention and rapid rehousing activities. We know that the full ESG, the 2012 rollout is around the corner, but we still are awaiting better guidance from HUD on the proper data collection methods. once we become aware of the proper data collection guidelines, we will let everyone know. It's not something that we're forgetting about. We're just waiting for better guidance. So please, if you have emergency solution grant with the new rollout with like emergency shelter or outreach activities, please wait a little bit for our guidance. Okay, with the program set up, of course, you need to associate it to the proper agency. Most users in the system are only assigned to a single agency, so that'll pretty much probably be defaulted for you. Couple housekeeping notes here. As you can see, once the program is created, this is for the sites as well, the agency pretty much gets locked down. We don't want any changing of agencies because that can kind of mess up client data down the line. As well, because of the implementation of the new house program rules like enrollments and exits, especially with the assessment loops where, you know, one program requires this, one program doesn't. We have actually, anytime you have clients enrolled in the program, as well as if you have inventory configured, meaning you have any, you know, it's not empty, you even have one bed, you know, created, we do lock out this program type code. Now, if at any time, you know, you realize there's a mistake or something happens, you can contact the PHMIS Help Desk, talk to myself or Steve, and we can work with you. We do have some overrides here that can correct that problem, but we just want to have some oversight with it so to make sure that your client data isn't affected by accidentally switching either of these two settings. Site location. Each program will need to select at least one of their agency sites, locations where the program will be offered or administered. Every program needs to be administered somewhere. Need to pick at least one site. You do not need to create a specific site for every program. That was kind of the old way to do it in the past years and everything. That is not necessary. If you're an agency that basically has one central administrative office that you serve all, you know, 2, 3, or 4 of your programs out of, there's no need to create a separate site, and we actually do not want you to. When you create your sites, we want them to be very real world and very physically, you know, this is where it is location-wise. And you can attach that same site to every single program that you have if that's how it is set up in the real world. Now, once you select your agency, you basically select from the drop-down. It has all the sites that you've configured in the agency. You basically just click the Add button, and that's pretty much it. Now, there are some situations, and maybe some residential situations, or even some outreach situations where you could even have multiple sites that actually administer the same program. And you want to, when you're collecting client data and collecting enrollments, you want to throw them in the same program bucket. The system allows that as well. Just add another, you know, repeat the process and add the second site to it. Now, when you are enrolling clients into the program, you will need to make sure that you are aware or cognizant of where you're serving them so that you do select the right site so it gets tracked at the right location. Now, if you do have primary sites, you will need to pick a primary one. The system will automatically default the first one, so if you just want to change it, basically click the next box. The system will basically move that checkbox. Target population A, record the appropriate target population served by the system. This is not required, but it is highly recommended. And it basically provides one of 11 different target populations that you may specifically serve. And the kind of rule of thumb is for a program to have a specific target population is 3/4 of the clients you serve must meet that specific definition. So if you serve less than 75% of the same clients, we do ask that you select kind of the response 11, which is SMF plus HC, which is basically the default all of the above. Target population B, this is a required field and must be set up before creating a new program. And it's more of a subpopulation, and it basically has one of 3 different choices. You've got domestic violence victims, which since DV, VAWA specific programs can't be in the system, that's probably not one that's going to be ever chosen. There's VET for veterans, HIV for persons with HIV or AIDS, or NA, which is not applicable. The same rule applies. 75% of your clients must meet this subpopulation for you to select it. And with this, if it doesn't meet either of these three, you have to select NA for not applicable. You can't leave this one blank. All right, just a couple housekeeping notes about referral setup. This is more kind of talking briefly about this because kind of sets up the information we're talking about on the next slide. System has implemented a couple agency-level referral features to increase the amount of successful referrals in this initial release. Something created called collaborative referral groups. Basically, we handle that. DCD does all the configuration, basically allows the setup of local and regional organizations to kind of group together when they know, hey, I'm going to work with these three agencies, we're going to refer to them 75% of the time. That's basically what it is for. Now, we understand the process is likely going to take time to implement as COCs, regional organizations talk to each other, get the proper paperwork in place before these referral-based collaboratives start working. But like I said, we just want to make sure everybody's aware that this feature is in the system, whether it's used now or later, it is there. Now, the other setup feature that we have is located directly on the agency profile, and this one is controllable or configurable by agency management. And it basically contains what we call an accepting referrals by program type feature, and this is, again, another option to try to provide users with the best match possible when sending out referrals, try to lessen the amount of rejected or ignored referrals. What it basically does is it looks at all the programs you have, and every unique program type you have configured or you have at your agency will basically be listed down here. This specific agency has shelter services only, permanent supportive housing, as well as ESG programs. Now, you may have 8 programs and a bunch of different that share the same program type. Each program type is only going to be shown once. Now, you basically have 3 settings, and what this basically does is within the system, it basically says what agencies can send you what type of referrals. And since on the referrals you basically choose what program type, to kind of denote this, the client's needs, this is basically a way for you to say, hey, I want to accept referrals for this program type. We can handle it, but I don't want to accept referrals. I don't even want them even sent to me because we can't handle them or we don't want to accept them from this program type. And there's basically 3 different settings. There's all, which basically means I'll take a referral with this type from anybody in the whole system. Collaborating, which basically means I'm only going to take referrals from people within my own collaborative group. And then there's none, which means we're not going to support or take referrals from anybody in the system. And basically there's just a little drop down and you basically select each program type. You hit save on the agency profile, and that's pretty much it.
Hey guys, this is Dan Fox. I just wanted to jump in here quickly and say that initially when we designed this, the idea was, as Brian was saying, to be as flexible as possible and really give each agency the ability to assist in the collaborative process by saying right up front what they will and will not accept referrals for. However, this is something that could potentially be tweaked as time goes on, depending on your COC needs. Some COCs already are discussing requiring agencies to accept referrals. Some COCs, specifically smaller COCs that might not work for, are talking about being more flexible, but typically the COCs that have more of a central intake need to have a lot of control over that process. So this is something that we hope to keep flexible, but this ultimately is not up to me or the help desk. So I just wanted to give you a heads up down the road. This, could be overridden by your local policies.
Great, thanks, Dan. And just one other note that when you're going into this the first time or a new program type's added, it always defaults to all. So So just want to make sure everybody's aware that if you add a new program type or change something, that once things get rolling and depending, like Dan said, of the overrides, what control you have, everything defaults to accept all. Okay, now we're going to go to the user account maintenance. Along with control of your individual components like agency sites, programs, inventory that we're going to show you, you also have control over all the individual users to some extent within your agency. Now we're going to cover briefly, we really haven't talked about the user registration process that much. We're going to have a couple slide on it just to make sure everybody's aware of the process there. We do have, I think, pretty good step-by-step guides for both the new user registration and any password reset problems that you're having. They are currently on the newpa.com website. Even with the new release, nothing has changed in this manner, so registration, we didn't touch that or the password stuff, so it's pretty much going to remain the same. After that, we're going to go into the whole user account maintenance, basically show you, what features you have, user lookups, profile information, flexibility you can set with your privilege levels, which basically control what kind of actions users can do in the system. And then finally, we'll finish up with agency permissions. Every user in the system needs to be assigned specific program site assignments that they are going to administer. We'll go over that whole process and kind of theory and thought process behind all that. Now, usually we kind of, I guess, glaze over the new user registration, but we kind of wanted to explain this to everybody while we had everybody here for the new release training. Want to let everybody know that the new user registration process does involve multiple steps. It requires both a paperwork and a system interaction process. It's not something that the help desk can just whip up real fast. Unfortunately, with the nature of the system, it collects a lot of client data, a lot of sensitive data. There's a lot of processes that we need to do before we let someone in. So if you're an agency manager, you have a new user, you can't, a lot of times, sometimes we just get an email and just says, hey, I'm Bill, send me an account, send me my password or something. It doesn't really work that way. It pretty much takes not only the user, the help desk, but it also takes agency management help to basically get this guy in the system. Now, there's two basic processes. The first is the paperwork part, where every user must sign what we call a system user agreement. Basically says, hey, I've been trained, I'm going to abide by the laws, the rules, privacy rules of the system, as well as they must be authorized to access the system for that organization. They basically, as an agency, you need to say, hey, yeah, this guy's with us, we want him in our agency, and he's allowed to access our data. And we call that a user authorization form. And that actually needs to be filled out by an agency manager or an executive director, somebody in the management of that agency. Now, once we do receive that paperwork signed, completed, then you can go on to the next step where the user will actually need to create their own account. We don't control any of that. It's actually, fortunately, it's a third-party system, PA PowerPort, PA Login. It's got a couple different names that actually handles our accounts and passwords. So we have no ability to change passwords or do anything like that. So through the login screen, they basically need to create their own username and a unique email address. Now, once those two steps are done, and we basically have the completed paperwork in our hand, as well as notification that you've created an account. If you create an account and don't let us know, we pretty much don't know the next steps done. That's when we can go in, activate the account, and then you can log in, create your new password. Just wanted to bring this up that it is a multi-step process, because a lot of times we have people, send us an email, and then we give them the steps, and we just don't hear back from them, and then 2 months later we kind of get a call and saying, hey, I never heard anything back from you. So we just want to make sure everybody understands the process.
I also want to jump in and say something here. Brian mentioned quickly, it's something that's always mentioned, but we haven't necessarily enforced too well in the past. He mentioned with the system user agreement language has been changed. All of our legal documents have been changed and will be being released with the new system on the 12th. But the system user agreement specifically references training. We have to move to a stance where we will not allow any user access to the system without being trained first. So training and these forms need to happen first. So as Brian said, it's not going to be, just an overnight process.
Okay. Thanks, Dan. Okay, now we're going to go into, now all the features here are assuming that, okay, all the prerequisites are done, and the system, the user has an active registered account in the system. Agency managers can control all of their what we call privilege levels, as well as program and site access through what we call individual user profiles. Every user has their own profile, and they can view their own profile as well. Basically, managers can click on a user lookup, and depending on the size of your agency, how many users you have, you can search for the name, first name, last name, hit search, it'll bring it up. A lot of times, if it's a smaller agency, you can just do a blank search, and it'll basically give you all your users that you have access to. And by clicking on them, it basically provides basic information about that user, their name, their username, email address, what agency they're attached to, that sort of thing. A couple other pieces of information it shows. It always shows whether the user is currently logged in or not, as well as the last login date. So you can kind of track who's been logging in and who has not been logging in. So that's how you get to user profiles. Now, with the privilege levels basically, each user has their own account privileges that allow a user to perform specific actions within the system. Now, with these privilege levels, it's one of those things where it's a building process. If someone has managed programs, that means they have login and managed clients. It's one of those things that builds upon each other. And there is 6 main privilege levels in the system. Most of everybody in the system is probably only going to be privy to those 5. HMIS leaves a very special one that only a few people have. Login is pretty straightforward. That allows someone to log in. Now, manage clients, that basically gives people the ability to pretty much manage clients, create households, create clients, enroll them in the programs, and that's the pretty standard feature or standard privilege level for all case managers, intake workers. That's what you want to set it to. Now, the next 3 basically are some managing features on kind of an escalating scale. Typically, agency managers, the top of the line, basically have the manage agency. And that you have control over users, sites, programs, agencies, everything. Now, the managed programs and users are kind of escalating. If you want someone that has, access to your programs, you can create or look at existing just programs. That's what we call a managed program. Now, a managed user is almost what we call like an assistant manager. Assistant manager basically has access over programs as well as users, so they are able to go in and set user accounts and everything like that. Now, typically within a agency, no matter how big or small it is, we only allow there to be a single agency manager per agency. We want kind of like a nice hierarchical structure. Now, there can be a couple assistant managers, and more as the pyramid goes down, but we really are looking to have a single person be the HMIS manager of that agency. When you are looking at users and doing the user lookup for the account privileges, you can only find and locate users that are below your level. So if you're an agency manager, you're going to be able to look up and edit anybody that's managed users and below. Same thing, on the way down. Now, you're not allowed to see anybody of your same privilege level. It's one of those cascading things of what the system allows users to see and access within the system. This is kind of the main section within the system, and that's one of the things that we do set up initially within the user authorization guide, that the agency kind of says, hey, I want this guy in my agency, as well as you denote what their privilege level is, and we set that up by default when we activate their account, and it does allow a little bit of flexibility for agency managers, however. The next thing that we want to talk about is user access permissions. Now, these are basically individual permissions to what we call site and program combinations. When a person is assigned to an agency, they basically have access to all the client data, client profiles, the assessments that are out there. They can create new clients. However, from a program side of the system, we actually have a second level of security that basically, since there's one client profile per agency, you could have multiple different users administering off the same profile, but dealing with different programs. To not allow everyone into everybody else's programs, we kind of set up this access permission based on both a program and a site permission. So you could have a user in your system that just deals with your SSO program, another user in your position in your organization that just deals with emergency shelter programs. This is where you basically set that up, and we know basically this is completely under the control of agency management. So when you create a new user or a new user's registered, or even you create a new program in the system, this information isn't set up by default. And Steve and I, the help desk, DCD, we try to not get involved. We'll help you through the process, but we can't set up these permissions since they're your users. Couple notes, like if you are an agency manager or an HMIS lead, though, any agency that you're associated to, you will have what we call implied access. So each program and site doesn't need to be specifically assigned to you. Since you're the manager, you basically have across-the-board stuff. But like I said, with users, anything below agency managers, for them to enroll clients, view those records, they need to be specifically assigned to their user profile. And we're going to kind of quickly go over the process for doing that. Within the first thing you need to select, it's kind of like you select a program first, and then you attach a site that program is administered at. It's a kind of a combination thing. You can't have just a program permission, or you just can't have a site permission. It needs to be a combination. You basically have a drop down of all the programs that are basically within your agency. Basically, you just click on the specific program, you hit the add button, and it'll basically add it to that client. Now, you need to make sure that it's a two-step process. So once you do that, the system will basically prompt you with a little message to make sure you understand it. Say, hey, before you save this program, you also need to give them permission to a site that offers that program. So you'll go down, it's pretty intelligent and clever of how it kind of walks you through the process. It kind of won't let you make a mistake. Within the site list directly underneath, so I basically said, hey, I want this user to have our transitional program. That's what he administers. Now you need to go down and select the site at which he's going to administer that program. So basically you select it again, you hit the plus sign again, and that will complete the permission process. And you basically can do that over and over again, for as many programs or sites, programs and sites that the user actually needs to administer in the agency. It could be one, could be two, could be all of them if they have, if they have their fingers in all your agency's programs. Now, a couple notes, since we kind of talked about programs can have multiple sites. Now, we kind of did this functionality so that you can actually restrict it by location. A user may provide services to a program, but only at this specific location. However, if this user may travel between the locations, or you want to let them data collect at all multiple sites, you will need to do a second step where you go into the actual site itself, and you'll basically pick the drop-downs, and it's basically going to show all the programs that, and the little asterisks basically show which programs the client has, and you'll basically show the sites under it. As you can see, this homeless shelter program is actually offered at 2 sites. So then if they actually do need permissions at both of those locations, you basically just do the same thing. You click on it, you hit the plus button, it's basically added. All these permissions are added in real time. There's no need to hit save afterward. It automatically saves it once you hit the plus button. Now, conversely, it's pretty much the same. It's easy to remove those programs. Say a user has left your agency and you want to kind of strip them of their permissions, or maybe they're switching programs, they're going from one program to another. All you have to do is come into the program, you click the button, you hit the minus sign, and the program, as well as any sites that are associated to it, will be automatically removed. So it's a pretty easy plus kind of minus situation of assigning permissions to users. One last thing before we take a break is just the contact on the user profile. We are adding a new contact email address directly below the account email address. One of the main reasons we're doing that is so at certain times when you register for your accounts, because like we said, we use that third-party system, it may already be in there, so you might not be able to register with your, the specific email address you want, so you had to create a Gmail account or a Hotmail account, something you don't register that often or look at that often. So we created this area so you can actually, if your account email is not your the one you want, you can go ahead and type in this basic text area your main email address. And what we do, what we're going to look to do for future trainings, when we send out our training notices and system alerts, we basically pull these email addresses out of the system, and we get a lot of bounce backs, and it doesn't allow you a lot of flexibility for what you want to have on your email list. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at this field first. If that one's filled in, that's the one we're going to grab and shoot you the notification that way. However, it is optional if the correct email address, your primary is your account email, you can leave it blank, and if we see a blank here, we'll just pull your old email address, your regular email address that we have in the system. So just wanted to mention that. Okay, we're going to take a quick break here, and when we come back, we got a whole lot of new stuff. It's going to be basically the whole new inventory setup everybody's here for. So it's about 8 after. We're going to take about a 10-minute break. We'll come back at about 10:18, and we're going to go ahead and take some questions. Thanks. Okay, everybody, welcome back. We're going to go ahead and, I guess, plunge into our the next big section, which is all the housing inventory stuff. Personally, I think this is one of the neater features of the system. We really, hopefully, some of you, most of you, saw in our supplemental training, developed a really interactive system with our housing inventory to check people in and out of individual beds. To do that, we also had to create a fully functioning housing inventory that needed to be created and maintained on an individual basis as well. And hopefully, we created a pretty simplified interface. It might take a little while to get used to. But it was developed to mirror how inventory is handled in the real world. We kind of tried to did something that incorporated all the data standards that HUD needed, plus looked at all the reporting features of AHAR and HIC and everything like that, but also the needs of how inventory really works in the new world, the real world. Now, each inventory item can be created and configured as well as tracked on an individual basis, providing a lot more flexibility, usability, and time saving that allows users and organizations with real-time physical inventory usage information. Housing inventory is set up and defined on a per residential program and site basis. So it's kind of a per residential program, per site link. Now, while most programs in the system have a single site, programs administered at one site location, for those residential programs that are administered at multiple sites, they will have multiple sets of inventory configured, and users will need to ensure that they put clients into the proper program site combination, kind of how I talked about before with if you have multiple sites, for scattered sites. You need to make sure that you interact with the proper set of inventory when the client is enrolled. Depending on which program site the client's enrolled in, that's what set of inventory those clients are actually going to interact with. And it also provides a lot of flexibility that, if you have a scattered site with apartments all over the place, you kind of have the ability to do, if you want to just track it at one site with all your apartments there, that's great. You can split it up. You can have 3 or 4 sites, to track, these groups of apartments or these groups of shelters or housing. Gives you a lot of flexibility to how you want to break it up, because ultimately everything is kind of grouped and pulled together on the program level. Just those sites kind of give you the ability to track things and do everything individually. Now, only residential programs can maintain housing inventory in the system. It includes the following types: any program with the type of emergency shelter, transitional housing, permanent supportive housing, permanent housing, or safe haven, as well as a couple VA-funded programs also support inventory of VASH, as well as the VA GPD, which is Grant Per Diem, which is a kind of transitional housing program. Now, please note, as you create, you have to create programs and sites. Inventory isn't something that you have to, hey, where do I create it at? The system automatically takes care of that for you. So as soon as you create a new program and it's residential and you add a site to it, once you save that, the system's automatically going to create you an inventory record. Same thing, we're working on some processes that if you remove the site, add a new site, it's basically very dynamic to what inventory you have. And that's also another reason we have some validation there. That's why you can't just switch the program type or change the agency. Same thing on the site. You can't just remove a site that has enrollments or inventory, because we don't want you to accidentally lose any of that data.
I'm gonna cut in here and answer a question that I think is pertinent for everyone to hear. While Brian's just getting started on the inventory stuff, we had a question as far about inventory and whether or not you would be required to do this in HMIS. The answer is a little complicated at the moment. Currently, DCD and HMIS staff, basically me and my guys, will not be requiring this from you. We won't be harassing you about getting your inventory set up because it's something we are going to require. However, because of the new statutory requirements for continuums of care, you will likely be mandated to keep your inventory up to date by the COC. So that's more of a COC thing, and it's something that, because DCD is the lead for many of your COCs, that we might end up enforcing on behalf of the COCs. But I know some of you already use other software to manage your inventory. This is an opportunity for you to use something that for free, that you won't have to pay for. But also something to keep in mind is the inventory that you set up in HMIS is meant to be used in a collaborative nature. Not only will your agency be able to see what beds you have, but your entire COC will be able to. And so there is a vested interest at the COC level for all agencies to have all of their inventory in, so that to make better use of the whole scope of offerings, so to speak.
All right, thanks, Dan. Kind of continue with a little bit of background. Each housing inventory record, kind of shown above, kind of has the status, inventory name, program, and site associated to it. And there's a few places in the system that you can find this. Only inventories with a status of active, as you can see there's a couple there, are fully configured and able to use to track client stays. Basically, active means you have at least one bed that's fully configured, or one unit or one item that's fully configured within your inventory. Now, you can only put that, people into that single bed, but that's the minimum requirement. Now, there are some other statuses, such as no inventory, which basically means it's blank, nothing exists, as well as unconfigured, which basically means it has inventory created, but it doesn't meet standards. It's missing a date, so it doesn't have all the data elements filled out for actually any of the beds. Now, those with no inventory or unconfigured still need setup performed. We basically have a couple different setup screens of what we call full entry, as well as an edit confirmation screens that we hope everybody takes a liking to, because we think we made pretty decent interface to entering and tracking this information. Now, the inventory can be found in two places. One place, the main place is on your start page, but anytime you click on those links, that's more for all agency users. It's going to take you directly to the review screen, not actually links to the configuration stuff. You'll have links in there. We do recommend that if you're setting up inventory for the first time to actually go through the site profile that we showed you earlier. The reason for that is depending on the status of it, whether it's active, unconfigured, or no inventory, the system is smart enough to actually put you on the specific utility that is probably the best starting point. Then you can go on through the process. Now, one note that if you do have a program labeled as other, I know we have some others within the system because you weren't sure which one you wanted to do. Other, program types of other do not have inventory. So if you do want to have inventory with the system, you'll need to make sure that you do change your program type to one of the available ones. That way the system will go ahead and open up inventory for you. Choose the best one that describes what your program is. Okay, now we're going to start with what we call, like I said, there's two utility screens that basically, depending on your need, provide different abilities to create and or configure inventory. Now, those inventories that basically have the status of no inventory, there's nothing created, this is going to be your starting point when you select it through the site profile. And basically, this screen is used to add. It's only an add utility. You can't change things or configure things. It's basically when you're adding either brand new, right off the bat to, start your inventory off the bat, or if you have existing inventory and you need to add a large batch, say, hey, I've got 10 more beds or 20 more vouchers. This is probably the place that you want to do that at. Within the system, there's basically three specific bed types or inventory types that we allow to be configured and tracked, and that's basically beds, units, and vouchers. So they're basically, each one has a little bit different variety, and we'll kind of explain a little bit about which one you should use. And each of them, of course, contain different configurations depending on which type you choose. Now, all of them are available on the screen at the same time. You don't have to fill out all of them. You can choose just to do beds, or just to do vouchers, or do beds and units. It's very flexible in what you want to do here. But, however, if you do start one, you do need to finish the configuration of each one. And we'll kind of take you down the configuration or creation path of each one so you know what you're looking at. With the setup, kind of which one should you choose, I guess, in the real world. Each one was created with a specific real-world kind of scenario or environment in mind. With beds, these inventory items should be used when you have a large number of beds in a single area, such as like a dormitory, a barrack, large open area. It's best applied to, it was basically created for shelter-type situations. Maybe you also are transitional housing and you have 5 or 6 beds in an open area for short-term housing options. That's what it should be created for. Now, beds do consist of two types. Basically, there's facility type and non-facility type beds, and the non-facility type are basically also referred to as the other, like on Hicks and everything. Facility beds are those that are located directly within your homeless residential site, and they're specifically for homeless persons. Now, the non-facility, or what we call other, are usually located off your facility, non-facility, and their primary purpose is usually not homeless persons, but it's almost like an overflow situation. So, you have some people and a church down the street has 4 cots or beds in an open area. Those are, and you use them during certain scenarios, that's when you want to actually configure the non-facility beds. Now, units, these inventory items should be used when there's a small amount of beds in a single enclosed living area. Units actually are more, we'll probably say this a lot during the training, they're containers for beds. And they basically can consist of things like apartments, SROs, townhouses. They're best applied to things like transitional housing, permanent supportive housing, permanent housing places where lengths of stay are medium or long-term, where you put families or maybe single apartments for special need clients. Because when you create units, you're creating the container plus you're creating the individual beds within a unit. You're not just assigning people, here's 4 people in a unit. You actually need to put them in the unit plus the individual beds. Vouchers, these inventory items are beds not located within your homeless facility. They're almost like virtual inventory for things like hotel and motel vouchers, you know, for shelters that are made through various forms of payment. Now also voucher items may be eventually used for collection of information from like housing authorities for Section 8 or public housing vouchers. Not currently in the system, but that's another area where hopefully, you know, the collaborative process will bring everybody in, and that's where it can be used as well. Now, one of the main differences between units and vouchers, you know, a lot of people might have some questions, well, when do I use units? When do I use vouchers? You know, the main idea of units is to be used for, you know, a physical housing residence, usually on your premises, something, you know, scattered site, what you have there. While vouchers are, like I said, more of a virtual providing payment to be housed at another entity, basically. Now we're going to go through each individual setup of each one. Like I said, they can be configured individually, or you can go across the screen, you know, if you have 2 or more and kind of go down the row. It allows a lot of flexibility of what you need to, what order you can go in. One thing is, once you do start one, needs to be completely finished before the items will be created. Each one of those start with kind of a basic question set. It's almost like a starting point, and then you kind of work your way backwards of configuring those items. The full entry screen basically collects like things like the number of items you have, beds, as well as we try to collect, you know, the household type. You know, we kind of slot them in. You know, what kind of beds? Are they adults and children, to meet the data standards from HUD. Now, with the bed setup, basically the first thing it asks for is just number of beds. Basically, it's the number of physical beds that you have at your specific, you know, that is associated to the specific program. Once you enter that, basically what it does is it kind of opens up the screens. You know, as you hit next, it basically will then kind of build upon the answers that you have, and it always validates backwards. So you enter in 30 here, and you hit next with beds. Then what it does is it opens up a second question, and this is where it splits it out between facility beds and non-facility beds. Now, if all 30 are in one allotment or another, you basically just enter it in the area and hit next. Now, the one rule here is the amount that you put in these 2 boxes, of course, have to add up to the total amount of beds. Once you're done there, you hit next, and basically the next screen basically takes those 2 entries that you enter here and basically gives a grid for beds. And it's basically broken up into facility and non-facility depending on what you enter. And it's basically kind of like almost like a cross-sectional grid where it'll have all the household types here, you know, adults and children, adults only and children only, and then it's broken up by beds also allow for availability, basically whether they're year-round, seasonal, or overflow. And you basically enter in what beds you have depending on those 2 configurations. Now, one note about the seasonal and overflow, as we kind of mentioned in the supplemental training, seasonal and overflow beds are only available for emergency shelters. So if you're not an emergency shelter and you want to create some beds, basically these 2 are locked out. You'll only have to worry about filling out your beds in the year-round availability section there. And just a quick note, you know, availability, basically anything that's year-round, it's basically on the premises, always available. Seasonal are ones that are available at certain predefined times, usually a lot of like cold weather months, where it needs to have both a start and an end date, basically a specific time range. And then overflow beds are things that aren't specifically, you know, it's not there all the time, but it may be something that can be pulled out at times of higher than expected demand, maybe a couple cots down in the basement, that sort of thing. Now, once you enter in the information here, you do need to make sure that the total number here that you enter does equal each subset. So in this example, if you had 20 facility beds, basically the total number that you enter here, of course, needs to be 20 as well. Since you have 10 non-facility beds in the grid directly below it, the total number entered would have to equal 10. Like I said before, it kind of builds upon, kind of starts at a big number and kind of works its way down, but the system's always validating back up to make sure that you get this total of 30. Now, with units, units are kind of, I guess, the most in-depth ones because they involve kind of a two-step process. You know, there's both the units plus the beds in the units, since the units are just containers. The initial question the system will ask is basically number of units plus the total of beds that you have in those units. So it kind of gets a baseline information for you. Once you hit next, then the system basically asks for what we call a number of bed per unit distribution. And that basically asks, you know, we basically provide two methods of how do you want to split those beds throughout those units. There's basically system and manual. Now, system, what it does is it basically kind of takes its best guess. Now, that one probably is best to be used when your beds are perfectly evenly divisible by your units. Like in this case, 20 beds, 4 units, it's divisible. The system will automatically know, oh, you put 4 beds in each unit. But however, if it isn't evenly divisible, it still will be able to be used, and we'll kind of explain that during that section. Now, manual basically will provide you with an area to configure every bed in that unit specifically. Now, here with system, basically what it asks, and it kind of provides a little bit of directional information to provide what we're looking for. And since the system is automatically going to distribute the beds between your units automatically, it's asking for what is the overall unit's household type. So the system is asking for a unit number. So, of course, the amount that you put in within these boxes here have to equal the amount of units. And wherever you put the unit, whatever household type, adults and children, you know, adults only or children only, every bed that is placed within that unit will also take on that household type. Now, don't worry, within this full entry screen, this is kind of just a way to collect a bunch of information up front. So if you set a unit to adults and children, and then, you know, later on you find out, oh, I messed up, it should have been a different household type, during the next screen, which is basically the next step's the edit configuration screen, the system, like I said, it basically breaks up every single bed unit individually. You'll be able to change that later. Another thing we want to talk about is what we call CH unit, and that's what we call chronically homeless units. Per HUD data standards, permanent supportive housing programs, and this is only available for those. If it's not a permanent supportive housing program, basically the system will gray these fields out. You won't be able to enter. Requires any units and beds within the units to be identified as chronically homeless, which basically means the people that you're expecting to have residents in those beds have special needs. Once you've done that step, basically you hit save and you move on to the next one. But we're going to show you quickly, say you selected manual, provides you, takes a little bit more work from the configuration side, but it does provide a lot more flexibility on what you're looking for. And depending on the number of units that you have defined, it'll actually list them all here individually. I mean, even if you put in 25 units, it'll basically scroll down the whole screen, giving you the ability to actually manually allot your beds. This is probably a good situation. Now, if you have tons of units and it's evenly distributable, you know, 20 units with 80 beds, kind of recommend using system because it'll put 4 in each one. But if you do have situations where you have odd units where you have, oh, okay, these 2 have 4 beds, these 3 have 1 bed, these 4 have 2 beds, this is probably the way you want to go. Now, you'll be able to fix it on the next screen, but entering it in manually might be the best option. Now here, what it's looking for, it's not looking for units, because each unit is specifically labeled. You're actually putting the number of beds in those units. So as you can see here, Unit 1, I'm putting 5 beds. Unit 2, 5 beds. Unit 3, 4 beds, et cetera, of course, under the specific household types. Now, you can even split up the number of, the beds within a unit. You could have, now, it may not really work that way in the real world, but the system allows for a lot of different configurations. If Unit 1 had 5 beds and 2 of them were adults only and 2 of them were children only, it really doesn't work out that way, but the system does allow that to occur. Now, as we said before, everything needs to add up to the initial baseline things that were entered. So because it's looking for beds, every bed number that you enter in, of course, must equal the total of 20 before you can continue on. Now, along with the CH, basically, the chronically homeless, instead of attaching it to a single unit, basically, if you have any beds that are CH denoted, you'll have the field here underneath to basically denote that for that unit. And that's basically it. Once you hit save on either, you don't have to go through both. It's either a manual or a system. You hit save, and basically that finishes the process for units. Now, vouchers, probably say this a lot too. They're kind of hybrids. It's kind of like a part bed, part unit. And it has a very similar setup to units, so we won't spend a whole lot of time on this since the setup's kind of the same, but it is a little bit different. With vouchers, you basically enter in your total number of vouchers, and then we also require to enter in the total number of beds to those vouchers. Now we know vouchers are kind of virtual, and it could be hard to tell, hey, I've got a voucher. I don't know if it's going to be 1 person or 5 people in it. Unfortunately, because of the data standards, we are still required to collect this information. So we kind of going to train on that, we're basically looking for an estimated number of beds that you think are going to be provided for each voucher. So that's what you're putting in there. Then basically once you hit next, the next step is basically pretty similar. It's basically looking for the number of vouchers per unit, actually number of beds per voucher distribution. This wording's a little bit off. We've actually fixed that in the latest release. And it has basically the same thing, system or manual. And it basically allows you the 2 different processes. With system, the system will automatically evenly distribute the number of estimated beds per voucher, and what it's looking for here is vouchers. So basically, just like the units, you're going to put the number of vouchers and all associated estimated beds with that voucher and a household type. Of course, needs to add up to the total number of vouchers you have. Then with the manual method, just like with units, it'll show each individual voucher, and what it's looking for here is instead of configuring each bed individually, because with vouchers, even though we're collecting this information, you're going to put everybody into a voucher. The beds are more virtual, tracked virtually, and basically they're there for reporting purposes, for the HIC and the data standards. So you basically individually disperse the bed counts, and basically you pick from a drop-down of what household type that voucher is going to be designated. And of course, all the beds, since they're just a virtual estimated count, get associated. And if the voucher's a CH, you can basically check that box there. And as with the whole system, basically, total number of beds need to match the total number estimated up at the top of the screen. Okay, whenever you finish any one of the, configuration trees or trails, however you want to say it, down at the bottom, only when you hit the final save and the system goes, okay, everything's validated, that's good, it'll actually uncover what we call the confirmation screen button. That will basically, when you hit that button, it'll take you to the second step, which is what we call our edit configuration screen. It's the second tool that we've developed where you actually put in things like dates and everything, and it really gets a little bit more in depth with all this inventory. You can do that. Now, if you're doing multiple types, you probably want to wait until, units and beds or beds and vouchers are done, because when you hit the confirmation button, if you have partially entered information, like say you've only done beds down it hasn't been completed, you will lose that information. It only carries over completely configured data. One note here that we want to make about some data conversion that we did. Now, any inventory, from the previous system for any residential program that never entered in inventory in our old way is basically going to be starting out as no inventory. It's going to be placed right on that full entry screen. Same thing if, whenever you add a new residential program, add a new site, that sort of thing. However, we didn't want to penalize those organizations or programs that did their due diligence and entered in the inventory in the old way. So what we've actually done is we've tried to convert that old data to the new system standards. So any inventory record that had information previously entered in, what you'll see is basically it'll have an unconfigured status, which basically means I have data there, but it's not ready to be used. Now, the reason we did this, maybe your old data has all the data elements and it's ready to go. We still, since it's the new way to do it, we didn't want to automatically put it in play. So we still require you to take a look at it and do a save process or an update process before we allow that inventory to be used. Now, one note here is, since the old data standards kind of collected things in a not very detailed fashion, you weren't able to basically enter information as units and everything like that. We had to convert all the old inventory to beds. So if you're like a permanent supportive housing or transitional that have units, please make sure that you know that you have all the, everything will be beds, and we're actually going to give you a tool called Group as Units that you're able to actually transfer those out to units if you need to, or if you want to start from scratch, you can delete it all and go on your way. We just didn't want you to lose any of that data. All right, now we're going to come to the Edit Confirmation screen. It's basically used for two primary functions. A, to complete the configuration of newly added inventory. Anytime you do use the new full entry screen, you will have to go through a second step, basically through this Edit Configuration screen. The other use for it is, this is kind of the maintenance area, so for any existing items you have, this is where you want to go to basically, look at the configuration of it, make little maintenance changes. It also allows you to add inventory, but it's just a one at a time thing. So that's why, if you want to add 10 beds one at a time through the screen, you can feel free to do that. However, the full entry screen will be available for those mass entries. The screen is separated into the 4 main inventory types. Each one, there's 2 for the beds, facility, non-facility, as well as units and vouchers. And since each one of them have a little bit of configuration type, of course, each one has a little bit different data elements and different look and feel on the screens. And we'll kind of cover each of those in order. Just kind of want to give you kind of a main look at what it looks like. Kind of provides, the program site type that you're with. And as you can see here, there's the different tabs you click on, it takes it to you. And as you can see here, every single bed, also units and vouchers are this way, are all individually lined here with basically the name, the status, availabilities, household types, all the dates. It's very, very detail-oriented down to configuring each individual item that you have within the system. Provides a lot of flexibility, and don't worry, you can configure them individually, and we also have a decent amount of tools, what we call a batch edit that we'll talk about, that if you have a lot of the same configuration, you don't have to go and enter a date for each one. We'll basically be able to batch edit a whole bunch of items in the system. And also, if you have inventory that you select on the site profile screen, if you have the status of unconfigured, which means data was converted and brought over, this is actually the screen that you are going to start on. We're going to kind of start with beds, kind of go over the information available for that. Now, a lot of the stuff that we talk about here, with the data elements that are required, some basic utilities that are available on the screen, are kind of going to go over the whole tool itself. And I'll mention saying, hey, this is going to be the same no matter what unit you're dealing with or what type you're dealing with, so we don't have to be redundant with all these features. All beds in the system require these following data elements: availability, household type, HMIS participating flag, as well as start dates, which are both inventory start date and HMIS dates if your inventory is what we call HMIS participating. And basically, for all inventory, all of these are required. Now, the first full entry screen basically provides you with the number as well as the availability and the household type. Once you create new beds, basically what you'll have to do is come in and tell whether it's HMIS participating, and basically the second stage of the configuration is basically entering in the dates for that inventory. Now, of course, you can change any of this information around after the fact, but those are the basic two steps for it. Now, with the dates, we just want to kind of go over some general date rules for when you are doing the second step of configuration. And this is for either new beds, new items or existing items. All inventory items require the entry of an inventory start date prior for it to be configured. It will stay in an unconfigured state until it has an actual start date. If it is HMIS participating, the inventory must also include accompanying HMIS dates. So if you're doing a new inventory, it's got a start date. It also has to have a HMIS start date. Conversely, if you close it out and end it, it's got to have a corresponding HMIS end date. No HMIS participating start dates can be prior to the inventory start date. Because basically HMIS participating, to get into that a little bit, that basically means that you are taking a concerted effort to collect the basic universal data elements for the clients that are going to reside in that bed. That's basically the distinction of whether it's HMIS participating or not. And the start date of the HMIS participating, while the inventory start date's when it actually became available for clients to use. HMIS participating basically means when it was available, that's when you started collecting the universal data elements. Now, you can, since this is kind of a new interface, you can put dates way in the past. If you started your inventory back in 2006, that's the start date that you can put in. We want you to actually go back to, truthfully and honestly track how long you've had your inventory there. Of course, the start date can't be before the inventory start date. No inventory can have an end date that is in the future, and basically we'll get into some of the maintenance options. And an end date is basically when a bed is retired or a unit gets retired and was used but is no longer going to be used. We don't allow them to be closed out in the future. You can't set like estimated close dates. It needs to be done in real time. The only exception, there's always exceptions to rule, are those seasonal beds that we talked about earlier that basically are predefined time frames, and they always require an end date. And we have a section during the maintenance section, since seasonal beds are kind of a strange bunch, have some special rules to it. We'll talk about those during that section. Once a specific bed has been configured, basically has all availability as well as start dates and accompanying HMIS dates, and you hit the Save button up at the top, which will show you the configuration tools available for each section. The system will turn the status from unconfigured, basically if you see here, it started unconfigured, it means it's not ready, to vacant. That's basically our default configured status. A vacant bed basically means, hey, I'm ready to allow people to check in. And when we talked about the active, as long as you have at least one vacant bed in your inventory, that's when it will flip the status to vacant or active, and it be allowed to be used with your program interface. One other note here is these inventory items, they all have open fields, and kind of talked about in the supplemental training. Basically, we kind of give them default names, whatever it is, bed this, voucher that, unit this, and we basically use the ID. Feel free, you can change these. It doesn't support a huge naming convention. I think we give you about 12 characters to fill in for those bed and unit names, but feel free to do that. Of course, anything that you do change within the thing, it's not a real-time interface. So if you flip a status or change a date, you do need to save it on that page prior to for it to actually permanently saving in the system. Because if you leave the screen before you save it, you will lose that information. Now, at the top of each section is a bunch of what we call configuration tools. We basically have an add, a batch edit, a remove, and a save. We also have a group as unit, but that's only a bed-based thing. Now, those four main ones, add through save, they're pretty consistent through all of the inventory types and pretty much do the same thing. So we're going to kind of go through and explain quickly what each of them do, and pretty much you can know what they're going to do at each screen in the system. The first one we're going to talk about is the batch edit. That's kind of the neatest feature that we wanted to implement, because we know some of these inventories can get, could be rather large. You know, you could have 30, 50 beds, and basically to go through and put in the same date for every single bed could get a little maybe frustrating, overwhelming. So that's why we provided this hopefully easy-to-use batch utility that basically can be done in 3 steps. What we also added is a little information line here, a little batch editor line, so in case this information is lost, hopefully it'll lead you to the right information. The first thing that you do is basically that you want to include in the edit process is these check boxes here. And these check boxes basically is a way to select the bed. Now, if you're individually just entering information, you don't need to select them. You can just do it on the screen. But if you're doing some of these options, such as remove or batch edit, you basically can select the specific beds. Say you just, and we also have this default all bed here. Basically, when you check this box, it'll basically check every single bed in this screen. And it even includes, say you have 3 pages of beds, basically it'll check not just the screen you're on, but every single bed within the screen. You basically check that box. The second step is we have all these basic configurations that corresponds to every single field, HMIS, the different dates, CH, that's the screen you're on. You can share the configuration with every single item. So kind of in this example, you see all these beds are unconfigured, and you can kind of look at them, okay, everything's good, but every single bed I had started on the same date, has the same HMIS start date. You don't want to go through each of them individually and type in the dates. You can if you want, but you don't have to. So what you do is you come up here, you type the date you want to share, the HMIS date you want to share. You also could pick household type. You know, say you wanted to change all these to adults only. You basically select that depending on what you fill in. Then you come up here and just hit the batch edit screen tool. What the batch edit does is it looks at all these fields and finds a value for each of the fields, and it looks and goes, hey, which one of these are checked? It could be 1, could be 5, could be 10, could be all of them, and it'll automatically write that data value to that specific field. So we think this is a pretty nifty little utility that we put in the system that probably will really help, especially if those large inventories that share a lot of the same data between multiple items. And this is available on everyone. This isn't just beds. You can do this with vouchers, and how we'll show you can do this with multiple units and unit beds as well. Quick overview of some of the other features in the system. The Add button, as we said, the Edit Confirmation screen does allow for individual items to be added. Basically, when you click the Add button, it basically will just create a blank new record at the bottom of whatever page you're on. You can do that for beds, units, vouchers. Now, you will have to configure the information. You set the availability, household type, and dates. It allows you to do that one at a time. The Save button that we kind of talked about, any change you make, even when you do the batch edit, the data is just written to the screen. It's not actually saved. So make sure that any change you do, update to the data, you hit save before you leave the page. There's a remove option, and this actually works in combination with those check boxes that we showed here. Basically, any item that you check, when you hit the remove button, the system will automatically basically delete them from your inventory. Now, just a note here, and we'll talk about this a little bit more about the retiring of beds and the closing out of beds in the maintenance section. You'll only want to use this option if you've mistakenly created a bed or an item or a unit or a voucher. You do not want to use this option if you're had a bed that was in use and you want to close it out because it's no longer used anymore. We want to keep that information historically, both the physical setup and the usage, so be careful with that. And we do have validation in the system, so you can't accidentally remove a bad bed or a bed that was used. If you try to, it'll come up and say, hey, this bed's either currently in use or it's had historical uses. So if you see that message, you'll know what that is. The group is unit. This is actually one that's particular specifically just to inventory, just to beds. And as we said before, since we had to convert all data over to beds, this is kind of where it was designed for usage. Now you can use it in other areas. It also uses those checked features. And basically what it does is, say you have inventory that converted and you want to put them in the units. You can basically check individual beds and say, I want 1, 2, 3. These 4 I know I want in a unit. You click Group as Unit. It'll automatically transfer it to the unit screen and throw them in the same unit. Or you can, just create beds here and, collect, 1 bed, 2 beds, 5 beds. It'll remove them from this section and automatically throw it into a unit to allow for configuration in that method. Kind of a neat little feature that we added on late in the design cycle. Okay, now we're going to go on to units. These are, as we said before, simply containers for beds within the system. Basically a way to contain, and usually it should be used for kind of small areas. I mean, you can use units to, if you want to put, 20 beds that you have in a room in a unit, you can. There's nobody stopping you from doing that, but it's more developed for apartment type situations. Now, every bed that you create or associate in a unit, that's what actually holds all the independent data elements. Units basically don't have any start dates, end dates, or anything like that. But each individual bed in a unit basically needs to be configured exactly as we talked about. They all need availability, household type, start dates, everything like that. Now, the unit screens, since they are we wanted to show both elements, both the units that you have and the beds, we had to kind of come up with 2 different views. And we kind of provided like a selection toggle view for this. You basically have a units view, and then you also have a beds view. And we'll kind of show you in the next screen. It's kind of one of those pictures worth 1,000 words kind of a thing. When you originally go into the units, you basically have all your units that are defined in the system. And of course, as we said before, all inventory items are defaultly named with the type and the ID number. Please change them to whatever unique name you want. Not only do we have that there, we definitely recommend it. Makes it a lot easier during the check-in processes that you know what you're looking at. The entire unit also has a status, and while the unit doesn't have any configuration information, it's one of those things where it always takes the status of its individual beds. So if all the beds are vacant, the unit will be vacant. If all the beds are unconfigured, the unit will be configured. So it's kind of like a master status for the beds in there. And then it also kind of provides just a little information field where it shows, hey, these are the number of beds that are actually associated to this unit. Has the same features, add, remove, and save. Anything you do here, you got to hit save. When you do hit add, it will add it'll add a unit shell basically. It'll just be an empty container that has no beds. Then you'll have to go into the unit, which we'll show you in the next step, and add the individual beds. Removed, same thing. Basically, you check the boxes here, whatever one you remove. Now, when you're removing a unit, not only does it remove the container, it removes any bed within that container. The other option that we have here is kind of like we said, the toggle, is we have a show beds toggle. And it basically toggles between these 2 views. And basically any unit that you select and hit the show beds, basically in the next screen we're going to show you, it basically provides the new view with the unit plus all the beds. So it's kind of flexible. So, if you want to just look at one unit at a time, you can check I just want to look at 173, hit show beds, and it'll just show you the 2 beds in there. But we also allow the viewing of multiple units. So if you check this main box up here, it'll check all of them. When you hit show beds, you're going to see every unit, all 4 units subsectioned with every single bed in it. Now here in the next screen basically shows what this kind of bed toggle screen looks like. And as you can see here, it's got all the main features. Basically, it's the same information that we have for the beds. Each bed, as you're going to see here, is, these 2 beds are assigned to this unit. These 2 beds are assigned to that unit, and that's kind of how it's broken down in the system to help you keep things separated. We kind of color-coded it to make it a little visually appealing so you know what beds are with what unit. The status is availability. Like I said before, when a unit is created and the bed's in it, in the full entry screen, basically this is the second step. You need to make sure that, the dates are entered before they become available. And it provides the same features. You can go in here and enter the information manually, or you can also use the batch edit field, which we definitely recommend for those that have the same information. Now, you don't have to just batch edit beds within the same unit. That's why we allow you to select multiple units. So we have 2 units here. Now, if all 4 beds in both units have the same information, go ahead and check them all, use the batch edit feature, and go ahead and write the same information. I mean, you could have 8 units, 32 beds, 4 in each unit. If they all have the same start dates and end dates and household types, there's no sense in doing them one at a time. Select them all, toggle to the screen, use the batch feature on every single bed in every single unit. So it's a nice little feature here. One little note, kind of the adds, the remove and save use exactly the same, features. You got to check each individual item to remove it. Make sure you save before you leave the screen. The add feature is a little bit different than any other screen because when you add it, basically you're creating a bed, but since you could have multiple units here, the system kind of has to ask you, well, where's this bed associated to? So the first thing that you need to do is associate which unit that bed is. And depending on which unit you have here, so in this example you have 2 units, when you create a bed here, it'll basically ask you to drop down, hey, is this for unit 173? Or is this for unit 174? And that's the first step you need to do. If you don't pick a unit and leave the screen, the bed won't be created because we have to know which unit it is associated to. And also, once you're done here, you got the toggle. Basically, you go back and forth. Once you click Show Units, you'll basically go back to this previous screen, and you can, go into other units or do whatever you need to do to complete the process. The vouchers, pretty much like beds, not going to go spend a lot of time on it. Basically the same information, same exact utilities here. Each voucher will be individually listed. Like I said before, the vouchers are their own container that have, beds associated to it. The only difference here is each voucher has their own estimated bed count. You don't configure each bed individually because we don't know if it's going to be 1 person or 5 people in it. So, of course, with the batch edit, we also have the bed count up there. So if all your vouchers have the same bed count, you can overwrite that feature as well. Basically all the same features with the batch edit, remove, and everything there as well. Now, with the vouchers, when you create a new one, the minimum, there's basically only a minimum. Each voucher needs to have a minimum bed count of at least 1 before it can be saved and configured. Now, before we kind of go on to some maintenance features, and we're going to take a break probably after about 5 or 6 more slides, show you some the next review screen and everything like that. We do have, since inventory can be could be overwhelming, you have a lot of information and everything, we've got some filtering features within the system that'll help you kind of locate inventory you're looking for. Within this bottom row here, like up here, here's the batch edit stuff. Here's basically filters that basically allows you to kind of slice and dice your information on each screen. It's almost kind of like a search feature where you have the status that basically provides all the statuses here, availability, household type, as well as whether it's an HMIS, these are basically true or false, as well as chronically homeless. You can also denote all inventory as chronically homeless by checking this box. By picking these filters, it basically, you can, say I just want all my unconfigured year-round adults-only beds that are HMIS participating. You can select that in the filter, and immediately as soon as you select it, the system will automatically rebuild this grid and only show you the items that you're filtering for. So it's a pretty neat little feature here. You can go, hey, what are my vacant? What are my occupied? What are my closed out inventory? So it's kind of a nice little feature there to help with maintaining your inventory. The other feature we have here is what we call kind of like a page size, pagination. Because of the size of the inventory, we can only, by default, we fit 10 inventory items on the original grid. Now, if you want to view, instead of going from page to page to page, we actually allow you to, on the fly, change your page size. And it basically has 5 selections that you can go in multiples of 10, 20, 30, all the way up to 50 items per page. So if you want to take a big, big idea, big scope look at all your inventory items, feel free to do that. But once you leave the page and come back, it always defaults to 10. One note about that, the reason we did default it to 10 is this screen and utility is kind of a, I guess what we call a resource hog. It takes a lot of processing power because of all the, a lot of data it's loading and everything like that. So while you can expand it and go ahead and do that, the processes could be a little bit slower because the system's got to rethink and basically relook at every single item. If you got 50 items on the screen rather than 10, it might take a little bit longer to get the job done. Just wanted to mention that. It's not something to stop you from doing it, but just want to make sure everybody's aware of it. Okay, once everything is done, once you're happy with the information that you've configured, within the edit configuration screen, which is the second step of the entry process. And like I said before, it's also going to be used primarily for maintenance. Down at the bottom of each individual screen, each of the 4 sections, is basically a review screen button that basically you can go to at any time. And hopefully a lot of you guys were in the supplemental training that showed all the neat informational features within there. When you're done here, basically you hit the review screen and basically it'll take you to that review screen and basically show you all the inventory items that are currently configured and available for use in the system. I kind of recommend doing that, so if you know, hey, I've got 20 beds and 20 vouchers, go to the review screen real quick, make sure you got the 20 beds and the 20 vouchers on the review screen if they're available, because if you go, oh, none of my vouchers showed up, you know that you got to go back to the edit screen to figure out, what's missing there. As we show, basically it's broken up into the 4 different sections. Basically shows only the available inventory items that you've configured. If it's still unconfigured, it won't show up on the screen. Each inventory item is a basic button. Now, only for agency managers, they only have access to these screens. Basically, every review screen basically has the 2 links here. We got 2 of them. It's called Add New Inventory Items and Edit Existing Inventory Items. Now, by clicking those, it'll take you back to the 2 special tools. Now, the Add New basically takes you directly to the full entry screen. Like we said before, it'll probably mostly be used just during the, the initial entry process. But if your inventory drastically changes, you're adding new inventory items, that's definitely the tool you want to use. As well as the Edit Existing Inventory, that takes you back to the Edit Confirmation screen. And for maintenance purposes and update, you're probably going to be using the Edit Confirmation screen definitely a lot more than the full entry. It's pretty much going to be used a lot when you manage your inventory. And a couple other features within the review screen. Basically, when you click on each individual bed, it'll show you the individual configuration information, provides, what availability, when it started, provides pretty good information. One feature we do want to show here, and this is only for agency managers, is it has an edit bed feature. And this is kind of a nice little feature to kind of edit information on a kind of a one-on-one basis. If you kind of click on a bed and go, oh, well, that date's not right, or that should be a different household type. You can click on this edit bed, and it'll automatically take you to the edit confirmation screen, but instead of having all your inventory, it's only going to have a row with that one bed you selected. So if it's 3663, that's the only bed you're going to see on the screen to allow kind of almost a unique little edit session just with that bed. Once you're, update the information, as soon as you hit save, the system will actually be smart enough to return you right back to where you are. So it's a nice little process that if you're checking something and you notice something, you don't have to go all the way out. This is a nice little back and forth option. Okay, we are going to take another break now. That kind of went through the whole how you set up your inventory. We're going to take a 10-minute break. It is, see what time it is. It's 11:18, so we'll take about a 10-minute break. Get back here at about, restart up at about 11:28. When we get back, we're going to finish up. We're going to pretty much take it all the way to the end, about 30 slides left. We're going to kind of go over once the inventory is created, we're going to show you all the maintenance things that you need to be aware of, as well as we'll kind of go through those client management tools that we talked about during the beginning. See you in about 10 minutes. We'll go ahead and answer any questions that you guys have. Thanks.
All right, guys, we are back. There's a couple questions I'm going to address first, and then before Brian gets back into it, a couple conceptual things I want to hit. There's a question about toddler beds and cribs. This has been an age-old problem. Those of you who don't deal with it, you can just, ignore this, but it's a very real problem for some people. Part of the problem is that HUD doesn't care about cribs and toddler beds. Those are not considered beds to them. But in the real world, we do care about them because obviously people need to use those beds. This is the one thing we have not yet figured out. It takes me really kind of getting certain clear answers from HUD so I can develop a workaround. We are thinking about it. It's possible we may just create an additional type or something that you can use for these rare instances where you have cribs and toddler beds. Part of the challenge, though, is all of your inventory ultimately gets boiled down and reported in the housing inventory count every spring, which is a report to HUD. And cribs and toddler beds, while you need to use them in the real world and need to be able to track them, we would not be allowed to report those to HUD. So whatever we do has to be a workaround. So I'm sorry we haven't figured that out yet. The other question here is shelter plus care vouchers, which remember, shelter plus care technically no longer exists, but I know what you mean. When you're entering it in the inventory, will they be considered vouchers or units? And this is actually something I wanted to address anyway as more of a conceptual thing. When you are, what we've done here is we took considerable pains with the housing inventory piece because the HUD business rules are so complicated, and we really wanted to have the system worry about the business rules for this for you, and make it so that you can just use the inventory and it will work itself out okay on our end. So the concept here is you should use the inventory piece as real world as you possibly can. It should be how your inventory actually looks. And then under the hood, the system will be able to identify your data. There's a ridiculous amount of tracking and historical stuff that's collected under the hood that we'll be able to look at for reports. So really the difference between units and vouchers is, and beds for that matter, is vouchers are really a, as Brian said earlier, a virtual thing. It's more of a funding source. You have money set aside to put people into other types of beds that are not physical beds or beds that you don't even know if you're going to need at this point. Unfortunately, HUD requires certain data be collected, and so that's why you have to kind of predefine it. But as far as we're concerned, we don't care how many people you put into a voucher. As part of the tracking thing is the system is going to be able to look at each client and treat clients that are in vouchers as being in their own bed, and so we'll be able to accurately report that. Along with this kind of tracking concept, another thing I know that there are always a lot of questions, and how do we define our beds, what the household types and everything. And that information is stuff that we are forced by HUD to collect. However, it's it's stuff that we can kind of ignore if you and your users use the system properly. So let's say you go into the system and you define a bed as having a priority of households with children. And let's say throughout the year, your users consistently only check children into that bed. When it comes time to report, we could report literally what you said the bed was going to be for, but we could also report based on actual usage of the bed, which is why it's so important for people to once you get your inventory set up, for you to remind your users to accurately check people in and out of bed. But that stuff is all going to be able to be reported on without you having to worry about it. Another comment about units. Units is something, and this is, again, we want you to be able to not have to worry about HUD business rules. Units is something that HUD defines as only being for households with children. I don't know why they do that. It doesn't make a lot of sense, but that's the way they want it reported. However, when you're setting up units in the system, we want you to kind of ignore that. Units, obviously, there are many times when people have units, you know, more of an apartment-style thing where they put multiple single individuals in. And we want you to set your inventory up real world. Again, if you set up your inventory and you have a unit that you are using and you only put single individuals in it, we'll be able to ignore that as a unit for purposes of reporting and consider them beds. But if the people you check in are, you know, a household that has adults and children in it, we'll be able to report it as a HUD-defined unit. So there are a lot of things here that we just want you to use the tool as it logically makes sense, you know, track your inventory the way it makes sense to you, and we'll be able to figure it out on our end.
Cool. Thanks, Dan. What we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and continue on all the way to the end, go over some maintenance features, because as with anything, you know, as we keep said, especially during the supplemental training, real time, we really want you guys to use this stuff in real time, as you do in the real world, for not only reporting, but for tracking, as well as the collaborative processes of broadcasting your inventory locally, regionally, throughout the COC. If it's not, occupancy is not tracked in real time, kind of loses that additional collaborative feature. Now, along with using it real time, of course, it needs to be maintained in real time as well. So if you don't put your changes and as things get added and removed on a fairly regular basis, it again loses kind of that additional slant or feature point of what we're looking for, you know, for referrals, wait lists, reservations, and everything like that. Now we're going to kind of go through, once we've got the inventory created, there's some basic maintenance options that you can do. We're going to kind of hopefully point out the main ones that you can use. Of course, this is a pretty flexible system. I want you to use it as real world as possible. Hopefully we've thought of everything. You know, if you're thinking of doing something, we think we have the feature in there. During the course of inventory usage, items can become what we call no longer available. It happens. Units retire, beds retire. Agencies, you guys need to reflect those changes in the setup in HMIS and actually remove them from being used for client stays. If you physically don't have a bed there any longer and it's in the system, you don't want to be putting more people into it, because that kind of will skew your tracking information. We have basically two different settings in the system to reflect, you know, a bed is kind of out of commission. One is a more permanent one, basically what we call a closed status. And that basically permanently removes any bed that was previously used. We keep all the historical data, all the historical tracking of all the client stays for reporting pretty much forever. Then there's another status that we did put in there. When a specific bed, unit, voucher needs to be temporarily removed for usage. The reason could be, you know, the inventory is undergoing physical maintenance, maybe an apartment's getting painted, or put new appliances in, or a bed's being worked on or being moved. A number of different reasons. We also have a status of what's called unavailable. And this unavailable status kind of works in a twofold. There's a way to manually make a bed or unit voucher unavailable, and what we kind of refer to as blocking it, almost like in the restaurant world where you block a table, you know, for later use. Then you can always bring it back when you're ready to use it again. Now, we also conversely use that unavailable status also for any future inventory. The system not only allows you to put in current inventory, but like things on the HIC that always reports things like future inventory or under development inventory, the system also allows you to put that in with future dates. You know, you say, hey, I know I'm going to have these 10 beds ready in, you know, August of 2014. You can put them in the system. However, of course, since they have a future date, they're going to be set to an unavailable status, and we'll kind of talk a little bit about that during this section. The first one is the closed items, when you're no longer going to actively use or no longer have a specific inventory item available. You need to remove it, or what we call close it out of the system. And again, all these actions, kind of maintenance stuff, are going to be done within the edit confirmation screen. This is basically going to be your good friend with the inventory updates. Simply, the system will automatically do it. You can't actually just toggle it to closed, because like Dan said, you know, you want to use it in real world. We will worry about all the business rules and everything and kind of take care of the statuses for you. Basically, you enter in when the last day that the bed was used. Of course, the same rules, you know, if it's HMIS participating, of course it must have a corresponding HMIS participating date. You can't close anything in the future, as we said. Everything, you know, should be real time. You know, at the end of the day, if you go, okay, these beds are gone, or this unit's being demolished or renovated, or whatever the reason is, you come into the system, you enter it in, the end dates, and you hit save, and the system will automatically change the status to closed. And please note, and we kind of went over this, and it's important to note, not to use the remove feature during this option. Now, the remove feature is only supposed to be used if you kind of add 10 or 11 beds and go, oh, I don't know why I did that. I'm supposed to only have 8. Then you can go and get rid of and remove the extras. But any bed or unit or inventory item that has usage information, it's not going to let you remove it. Now, this is kind of where also the filters come in. While an inventory item, as you see here, will automatically get closed on the screen, when you come back to this screen, this item is going to be gone from your master list. You know, it only shows basically unconfigured, vacant, and occupied unavailable items. But it's still there for you to view. But it's under basically these filter statuses that filter by, like, you know, unavailable, closed, vacant, occupied, unconfigured. To see any of your closed inventory items, you basically filter to closed, and that's basically where you'll find them. Now, you can do that if you just want to review them, or maybe you accidentally closed out a bed, the wrong bed, and you went, oh, you know, it's gone. How do I get it back? Just look under the filter. You'll see it here. To unclose a bed, you know, if it was a mistake, you basically undo the dates, the end dates, hit save again, and it'll be set back to vacant and put back into your normal inventory rotation. Now, a note with closing items. Say you have a new item that you know that you have a bed that you're closing out, then you're replacing it with a new bed. We actually recommend, since it tracks things historically, I mean, you can go and reopen it, but unless it's the exact same item, you know, the exact same physical item, the best process is probably to just create a brand new one in its place. That way, you know, the closed one will have all the usage days and everything tracked with it, with the date ranges. It'll know when it started, when it ended. Then you'll have the new inventory entered kind of in its place. But it'll have a whole new ID, and we'll actually kind of see it as maybe a replacement, but a brand new physical bed. Now, with the unavailable items, like we said, there's kind of 2 different ways to look at it. The first one we're going to talk about is kind of what we call the blocking method. Basically, if you have a bed that you know that you're using, and you know you kind of want to take it out of your rotation for whatever reason that may be, but you know you're not retiring it. You know, at some point in time in the future, you know, and this should be used for kind of a short-term basis. You know, if you know it's not going to be used for years, you know, you probably should close it and then recreate a new one as it gets replaced. But if it's for a short period of time, a week, a month, even a couple months, there's 2 ways to basically set it to unavailable. You can go directly in the edit confirmation screen and basically toggle it, the status to unavailable, and hit the save button. Then that'll immediately, that bed, unit, whatever inventory item will no longer be allowed to be used for usage. So when you go and a client is trying to be checked into a bed, it basically is going to exclude any of those inventory items from those listings. Now, one note that we do want to make about the editing of this information, like toggling things to unavailable, the system only allows you to edit information or set beds to unavailable when they're vacant. So if you've got an occupied bed we're not going to allow you to just change it to unavailable because it's currently occupied, as well as change any information within it. Once it's occupied, it's kind of a static thing. Once that bed gets emptied out and the first people are checked out of it and it becomes vacant, that's when you can go in, make whatever little changes you want. Say you want to flip the household type or change a date or whatever you want to do there, or even set it to unavailable. That's when those options will be available. Same thing with the close. You're going to be able to close out of bed if there's someone still occupying it. Now, the other option that we have, and it's pretty much the same thing, but instead of going to the confirmation screen, we have that option available basically within the review screen. This, again, is only an agency manager option. Regular users, while they can get to the review screen, won't have this option on their screen. Basically, you go to the individual inventory item, and you click on it, and then it basically, like we said before, brings up the whole configuration, kind of the physical setup, predefined setup of the bed, and it'll basically have an unavailable checkbox. It'll, of course, if it's in circulation, it'll be unchecked. All you have to do is check the box, and then you do need to make sure you hit save. If you check it and hit close, or uncheck it and hit close, or go to another bed or a screen, the system won't actually save that status. So to make sure everybody understands. And then basically, as they become unavailable or come back into circulation, it's easily just go to any review screen link and make this change directly within that review screen. Of course, if it's currently occupied, this option will be grayed out, just kind of like in the confirmation screen. The other way items can be unavailable in the system are those that are entered that are future inventory, also known as under construction, I guess is the terminology on a lot of HUD-based reports like the HIC. As we said before, basically when you're creating a new bed, you can enter the start dates as far in the future as you want, whenever they're going to be, when you think they're going to be available for use. Basically, once you enter in both the dates, same rules here of the requirements, and hit save, the system will automatically toggle it to unavailable, as you can see here. And you won't be able to switch it to vacant because it's a future date. It kind of locks it down. Now, if you want to go ahead and go, oh, well, I made a mistake. It's not in the future. It's actually available now because you're ahead of schedule. All you have to do is change the dates. And as long as it's at least a current day of today or earlier, hit save again. It'll automatically change this label to vacant. So those are kind of like the two different available features within the system. And one can be blocking, one can be because of future dates. On the review screen, while regular users only see completely available inventory, whether it's occupied or vacant, agency managers will see an extra set of beds. They basically have these red highlights around them. Those are beds that are currently set to an unavailable status. Now, it could be because you manually block them, or it could be because they're a future bed, but that's the kind of quick scan that you can get when you're looking at that review screen. And the little unavailable up here will basically keep a count of them. Again, this feature is only available for agency managers and above that are looking at this screen. And one little last thing that we want to kind of talk about is another status that you might see on the inventory review screen. And this is available for all users. This is both for agency managers and all users, is a reserved status. And basically any bed that's reserved through the reservation process of like a referral, when someone sends a referral over and you have available beds, they have the ability to kind of perform what we call a soft reservation on it, or basically kind of a placeholder when they are coming over. Any bed that is currently reserved will basically have a yellow highlight on that. Now, at this time, agency users, at least the receiving agency, the agency where the reservations are placed, you still have complete control over these reserved items. It doesn't mean that you specifically have to put those people in those beds, they're not really reserved for any person. You know, it's not like this bed is reserved for Jim and this one is Mary, and you can only put Jim and Mary in these beds. They're just kind of an identification placeholder that can be overridden by basically putting another person into those inventory items. Just want to make sure that everybody, if they see those on their inventory screens, what they actually mean. Seasonal beds. Since seasonal beds are a little, I guess, quirky, have a little bit different setup than everything else, we just want to spend a slide or two on them for some of our emergency shelter people that use those. Again, they're only for emergency shelters, and they're basically, seasonal beds are those that are on a planned or predefined basis for those periods during the year that they expect increased demand. A lot of times it's over the cold weather months, you know, November to April, those sort of things. Now, they're the only bed in the system that requires both a start and an end date when they are created. Any other inventory item that has an end date will automatically be closed except for a seasonal bed. Now, with seasonal beds, there's kind of some maintenance that needs to be involved with that. They aren't something that you can just set and, you know, they'll always be there and you don't have to touch it again until it changes year after year. Since they do have a predefined date range, they are something that are going to have to be managed on kind of a yearly basis, because since they do have a predefined date range, so say you have like 4 seasonal beds that are going to run from this November till next April. Now, the system is smart enough to know when these can be used. So until the time, you know, say you set a future start date, they'll become an unavailable status until that day, till they become available. Then they'll only be able to be used for usage until that end date. So after April of next year, those seasonal beds will kind of be taken out of rotation. So what you have to do is either go into those seasonal beds, close them out, and then recreate them kind of year after year, or what you can do is reconfigure the dates. You know, jump them out again from next November till next April, and kind of move the seasonal beds as kind of the years go on. So that's one maintenance issue that needs to be done on basically a yearly basis. Just a couple little screenshots about this, kind of how to show this. For seasonal beds, if you do set any seasonal bed in the future, and this also goes for any future inventory item that are set to automatically unavailable, when the time comes, as you see, these are available December 10th, so of course until that time they can't be used. The system, when the time comes, doesn't automatically just put them into your rotation. And this also, like I said, goes for future beds. And we kind of made a conscious decision to do this because we didn't want something where you put in the system and said, yeah, they're going to be ready February of next year. And then the time come and then all of a sudden show up on your inventory. And then people will start using them or maybe reserve them. And in the real world, you were like, ooh, those beds actually aren't going to be ready till April. So that's why there needs to be an actual managerial action to basically put these beds into rotation. So as soon as the time comes, when you come into the edit screen, the unavailable will turn from locked out to unlocked out, kind of like how you manually block a bed. At that point in time, you'll have to manually toggle those items to vacant when they actually become available. Now, you might go in there and move the dates. You know, if it says, oh, it's supposed to be February, it's kind of a guess. Let me move it again till April. You can do that, and the system will, again, lock it out after you save them. But we just want to make sure everybody's aware that any future bed that's unavailable will have to have an extra step done to put them back in the circulation once the actual current day hits those start times. Okay, that concludes the agency inventory setup. Hope everybody enjoyed that setup and everything. It made sense. Now we're going to kind of go into just the regular system features and some client management tools. hopefully a lot of you guys were in the earlier core and supplemental classes, but what we're going to do is hit some of the high points, what we think are, not so much the functionality, but more of the methodologies that have changed in the system. When any agency manager goes into the system, this is the basic start page they're going to see. And as you see, the basic caseloads, any inventory is going to be directly here on the screen. Now, of course, when they select it here, it'll take them directly to the review screen. They've got pretty much all the functions here. They're going to have a little bit more tools. And here, by contrast, is basically what a case manager sees when you go in. Now, they still have the same information, but the main areas that are different are these records and tools area. Basically, agency managers have a little more extra tools, a little bit extra search for features. So everybody's aware of what each kind of privilege level provides what kind of features. A couple global features I want to make sure everybody's aware of. We still have the log out feature. When you're done with the system, you do need to explicitly log out of the system. Failure to do so could result in being locked out of the system. If you try to log in and you get this, you are logged in, you basically have two courses of action. You can wait either 20 to 40 minutes in the system. We've actually tried to improve that process to kind of run a batch to check out, who's locked but out of the system. That's why it's kind of a 20 to 40 minute thing. It depends on when the check happens. Or you can just contact myself or Steve at the help desk during normal business hours. Shoot us an email, give us a quick call. It doesn't take more than 20 or 30 seconds to get you unlocked. Trust me, we don't mind. We do this quite often. The other area in the system with data collection is there's basic gold balls next to it. Any user and a lot of these gold balls are in places that are more managerial functions, agency profiles, inventory stuff. We've tried to remove a lot of that stuff from the system because we've opened up data collection, but that's just what these mean throughout the system. Domestic violence client note. The HMI system has been updated to support data collection for victims of domestic violence. Now, those are only those served at non-victim service providers, just basically general service providers where victim of domestic violence happens to come in for services. VAWA agencies that are specialized in that are still prohibited from being in HMIS. Now, we have implemented a number of security and privacy protocols enacted throughout the system to only allow those victims of domestic violence to be accessed and have their information seen by authorized persons. Those authorized persons are either managers. If you're an agency manager of the system, you do have pretty much global access to all clients in the system. The other authorized is for a regular user below agency manager to be able to access it, they must be directly on their caseload. So we kind of went over in the core features a lot of privacy and security and, actions that case managers might have to come to you for. So please be aware that, when those situations come up, you're going to have to kind of take a look at the situation and make a decision on which direction you want to proceed with. Finally, every client is required to enter an initial domestic violence assessment that's new in the system to basically denote whether they're a victim of domestic violence or whether they're no or not, and basically the security prohibitions will be enacted depending on those settings. Just wanted a quick note about that. Some intake methodology. System has evolved to collect not just homeless programs. The system basically was geared around program, HUD-based program data collection and all the data elements associated with that. We're trying to evolve the system to not only collect data still for HUD requirements, but also open it up to collect data associated specifically just to the client. Basically data collection more client-based for multiple things of outreach tracking, collaborative referrals, eligibility determination. It's kind of hard process when a person comes into your agency to know immediately off the bat whether they're going to receive a program or not, but you want to collect some of that information, and the system allows that partial collection through profiles and also the assessment stuff within the system. Permission to enter in client data in the HMIS is implied and requires no written or verbal consent as long as each agency has a privacy policy which denotes that. We'll talk about that a little bit in the next slide. that kind of details their data collection processes and intents. The collaborative consent form, client consent form, has been changed basically to support the new data sharing policy and settings within the system. I want to make sure everybody's aware of that. We have enacted true data sharing, so these client consent forms are becoming very important now. They're not required until an actual global setting policy is entered, which is required before an enrollment. It's not required just to put a person into the system. It is required for those additional steps. Any old client consent form, once the system is released, basically we're looking for a December 12th release. Those old client consent forms are no longer valid. Throw them away. They're not going to be any good. From this point on, you have to use the new client consent forms. And again, it is one of those things where it's start using it now going forward. We're not going to require you to go back and collect new forms on every single client you've had in the past. Now, if that client comes back in and wants to change their sharing policy, that's when it needs to be used, or a brand new client needs to be used there as well. And as we said, all agencies are required to post a privacy notice for their data collection reasons. And kind of might be a little known fact here, but we just want to expound upon that a little bit. Privacy policies are required to be in effect for every agency, every partner agency in the system, to inform clients about the uses and disclosures of their personal data and to protect the agency by establishing standard practices for this use and disclosure of that data. Basically, you're collecting personal data. Those clients have the right and need the notice of what you're going to do with that data. Each agency must post a sign at each intake or comparable location, as well as on your website if you have one, explaining the reasons for the data collection. It's basically a short little list saying, hey, this is where we're going to collect the data. If you're going to do implied or inferred consent, it must be included in this privacy policy and posting, as well as every notice or posting needs to make sure that every client knows that you have a privacy policy and it's available upon request.
I'll jump in here. This is something that, because we weren't sharing data before, we collected the data sharing forms literally because HUD required it. But as you all know, they were pretty pointless. Now that we can and will be sharing data, those client consent forms become uber important, as well as the privacy policies that that your agency is required to have. Now, this is something that we haven't really focused on in the past, again, because of data sharing, but we will need to start focusing more on in the future. A lot of you probably already have privacy policies in place that maybe just need to be tweaked or updated. Maybe you just don't know you have them. However, for the scope of data collection in HMIS specifically, you do need to have some language about what is done with that data. Now, DCED, we've developed a privacy policy. We've developed policies and standard operating procedures that all of you should download and keep at your desks. But we did develop a specific privacy policy that governs how data is used once it enters a system, and also governs how me and Brian and Steve, what we are and are not allowed to do with this data on your behalf and on the client's behalf. We do have a sample privacy policy posting, the sign that you're required to have at your intake location. We do have a sample in there that you guys can certainly use. The policies themselves, though, because many of you work with different funders that are outside of DCED's jurisdiction, or maybe you have specific concerns just for your demographic of people, your privacy policies should include, obviously, your full scope. So we didn't want to, I mean, obviously you can use our privacy policy as a sample and tweak it to apply more directly to your agency, but don't forget when you are talking with your legal departments or your executive directors that your privacy policies don't only only include HMIS stuff that, you may have extra concerns there. So I did want to, to bring this up. We're not going to be, beating down your door necessarily, but we will start focusing on this more. We will start contacting people. We will start asking for copies of your privacy policies. But it's not something, that I want you to freak out about and panic. But it is required. It is required by HUD. It's required by the state, and it's something that theoretically should already be in place, and we realize that it's probably not, but it could be. But we will certainly help you guys with this.
Great. Thank you, Dan. Now we're going to move along to assessments. Just a quick introduction. One of the large changes we did make in the system is released basically a new way of collecting those program-specific data elements, how they're collected and maintained. Basically, they put to the forefront of the system, collectively now called assessments. Basically, the 6 basic assessment groups of health, income, employment, education, income and benefits, and, of course, the new domestic violence status. Are still, of course, collected in conjunction to program stays as required by HUD. But as we talked about during the methodology, how we're opening up the system to have more data collected directly associated with just the client outside of a program, all this information can be directly entered in the system and kind of referred to as what we call a general assessment. And they can be used for other processes like referrals and collaboratives, also sucked into programs, that sort of thing. All assessments also entered into the system, past, present, and future, are only located within the assessment section of each client profile. Basically moved all the assessments there. Even if you enter, an income assessment for a program in the program and services area, it's not going to be found there. It's going to be in the assessment area of each client and labeled specifically of how it got collected and where, as we went over in the core training. Just pretty big change there. Want to make sure everybody's aware of that. Client consent form, big global sharing change, kind of went over most of this. Global data sharing is now truly into the system. It's very important that whatever is recorded on the collaborative client consent form must also be recorded correspondingly in the system. Can broadcast some, none. We have a whole bunch of sharing options that allow a lot of flexibility with what each client needs to be shared. Need to be familiar with these new consent forms, what the new rules are, sit down with these clients and explain the new process and what they can do and can't do in the system. Okay, those are the kind of the high points of what we went through in the other classes. I don't want to, hopefully everybody was there. Don't want to rehash them too much. Now we're going to go into kind of the client management utility section. A lot of these, probably about 2 or 3 of these are already there. Still want to go over them just to make sure everybody has a refresher for any new agency managers we have there. We have some caseload utilities that basically, when we said caseload stuff, basically every client can have a client directly assigned to them and they're put on their caseload. It's one that they directly work with. Agency managers have the ability to go into every client profile. There's basically a user list there where they can assign and unassign users to this client within their agency. Provides a lot of flexibility. You can assign multiple client users to it if, say, the client's in multiple programs and need to be administered and work with multiple people, as well as if the client is gone and exited out of the system for many months, they're not working with them anymore, you can remove all of the users associated. Basically, the client's not associated to anybody and get it off, kind of a way to clean up people's caseload so they don't have, tens and hundreds of clients on their caseload, so it's actually relevant and useful. We also have a standalone caseloading tool. You can do it kind of a onesie, one at a time thing within the profiles. Also, a caseload tool is available. When you click on it, basically gives you a big utility where you can do a whole bunch of removing, transferring, sharing clients. It all evolves around basically a single client. Basically, you select the client you want to work with within your agency. Say a client has, 20 people on their caseload that are gone. You want to get rid of all of them, kind of clean up their caseload for them. You select the client. System automatically fills up their caseload, basically displays all the clients on their caseload. Could be 5 people. We've seen some caseloads with, 20 pages of clients, hundreds of clients. You can basically select each individual one and do specific options with it, you know, like remove them from the person's caseload. It also has all the active users in the system that allows you for any select person to either transfer them, which basically means it's going to completely move from one user to another, or even share them, which means it's going to remain on the original person's, and you're just adding a new user to that caseload. A lot of functionality here. We also have a check entire caseload. Maybe a user has left your agency, but they still have a big caseload. You can click this box and hit remove, and basically all those clients will be taken off those person's caseload. So a lot of flexibility there from more of a user management standpoint, and that's been in the system for a little while.
One important thing to remember about this caseload utility, because of the ability now to collect domestic violence victim data in the system that are not served specifically by victim service providers, this caseload is going to become more important because if a user stumbles across a domestic violence victim in the system that is not on their caseload, they're not going to be able to do anything with that client. They won't even be able to see the data. Only people who have domestic violence victims on their caseload, which means they've created the person as a domestic violence victim, or agency managers will be able to see the information for those DV victims. So it is possible that a user may need to come to you and say, hey, I'm working with somebody here. There's a domestic violence person in this household, or I've come across a domestic violence victim for some reason. I need to work with them. Can I have permission to do that? If you determine that they should be able to have that permission, this tool is what you need to use to look up that client and explicitly add them to that user.
Thank you. The next tool that we're going to go and look at is the client merge tool. Hopefully everybody's fairly aware of this tool. It basically provides the ability, it's a pretty dynamic and flexible tool to basically merge duplicate clients in the system. Now, we put a lot of things in the system to prevent duplicates, but we're still going to keep this standalone tool around. You know, mistakes happen, duplicates get put into the system to basically take care of those problems. Now, when you click on this tool, basically, it'll basically bring up a search area that allows you to search for the duplicates you're looking for. When they come up into this area, basically, and this is all kind of one of the reasons why it's only available for agency managers, it does take a little bit of recognition to select the specific duplicates. The system doesn't, I guess, point out the duplicates for you. And we actually did create a new kind of advanced client duplication process that we introduced in the core class that we're going to talk about a little bit later that does allow users to do that, but on a more focused basis, I guess. Basically, you come in here, take a look at which ones are duplicates, and basically you check the ones you want to merge. It could be 2 people, it could be 3 duplicates or 4 duplicates. Once you're happy with the ones you want to do, you basically hit this display merge info button, and that kind of starts the whole merge process. Again, this is a very judgment-based process. The system doesn't have any validation. It leaves it up to you. So be careful when you do this, because once merges happen, they're permanent. And it also, like I said, no validation. So in a sense, if you wanted to merge a Bob Smith with a Jim Jones, it will let you do that, even though, of course, that's very, very, very not recommended. Once you begin the process, there's kind of 2 different ways to look at it. There's kind of a single client merge, as well as we've kind of talked about the merging process. If they're in households with people, you can't really just merge the client together, and we'll kind of get into that multiple merge process as well, and that's one of the reasons why it's so involved, merging different people. But if it is just a single client, there's just 2 individuals in the system, it'll basically bring up and show, hey, these are the people that you selected, and what it does is it kind of merges them, uses kind of some basic logic to provide you with the, hey, this is what the system thinks is the best possible data. And it uses a little algorithm between, the most complete data plus the most recent data, and it kind of throws it into this grid area that allows you to change it if it's different. Now, if all the information, as you can see here, everything matches across the board, it basically grays everything out and says, hey, these, both of you guys are exactly the same. The system will kind of take it from here, and we'll show you if information is different, the system actually allows you to choose which data element you think is the best possible match. Once you're done, you basically hit Confirm Merge. The system, of course, always will give you one last little prompt to say, hey, are you sure this is pretty much can't be undone? Once you do that, hit the Save Merge. It'll basically merge that client into a single profile, kind of merging all this information, and it's kind of been updated with all the new stuff that we put out there, any program they have, any assessment information they've had, any inventory information they've had, referrals, waitlist transactions, all of that is going to be combined and associated into that single client profile. So we take a lot of time to make sure that no data is lost during this process. Now, as we talked about, basically it also is a household-based process. So once it does this initial merge of the single client, the system kind of takes a look at each client and goes, hey, does this person have any household members associated with them? If they're singles, you're done with the process. However, if it does notice household members, it will also need to look through the system, and basically it'll try to merge any of those household people as well. Because a lot of certain cases, if the persons are duplicated and they're attached to households, odds are the whole households are duplicated as well, and we don't want to leave those people out there and have you to merge all of them individually. So we want to take care of it in all one fell swoop. So if that happens, you basically get a message that says, hey, you're attempting to merge a household with multiple members, and it basically shows you, says, hey, these are the people that we've noticed that are in that household, and we're basically going to go look through the system and find those duplicates to basically allow you to go through the process one at a time. And it'll kind of almost a looping process through each household member. As you see here, it kind of starts, here's Jessica and Jenny, so it basically starts with the next person. Here's Jessica. It shows you all the duplicates that it found in the system, and then basically gives you the best possible record. And as you see here, because the information is a little bit different with the eye color, it's not sure what the information is, it basically provides you with the ability to select from the drop-downs of all the information on the different client profiles. Once you select it, if you do change that information, you just hit Update Merge Record. It'll refresh this master information and say, hey, this is the basic client profile information that's going to be created. And then if there's existing ones, you basically hit Merge Next Member, and it'll basically loop you through this process until every single household member is complete. Kind of take care of it in one fell swoop. Now, if it is a household process, the system will basically prompt you with the household name, if there's multiple household names, to kind of give you the ability to select which one. Now, of course, after the process, you can always go back and rename the household to whatever you like. Once they're merged, it's basically like they're, brand new clients in the system. Once that's done, basically the system will provide you with one last, in a household base, kind of like one last, here's what the final merge is going to look like, here's all their data elements, and then, of course, makes you go through a final confirmation stage. Hey, you're sure you want to do this? Again, once people are merged, they're merged. There's really no way to unmerge them after that fact. So it's a really good utility, and I think a lot of people have really taken advantage of that in the system, especially with our transition from the old way of collecting things in site buckets to the new one client profile per agency. A lot of people have cleaned up their data that way. Now, I want to talk about something that we highlighted, or actually went over in pretty decent detail in the core feature class. Currently, in the system as it is right now before the release, we only have duplicate checking basically when the client is created, and that's because we basically collect everything up front. We've got enough information to find it. Now with the ability to create partial profiles, a lot of times, or in certain circumstances, we're not going to have enough data to really identify properly any duplicates in the system. So anytime a name, a date of birth, a social security number, or a gender are either entered for the first time or changed on the client profile, the system does a duplicate client check and basically takes those pieces of information, searches your agency, and tries to find matches. If it doesn't, you're fine, you move along. However, if it does, it performs one of three things. Basically, if it has a full exact match, basically the system will automatically merge that client, take care of that with you. And as we kind of talked about, it's not only a client thing, it's a household thing. So there's logic in there to take care of the household as well. And the one thing that we wanted to kind of bring up here is with if it's not an exact match, but the system has two ways of flagging clients. Basically, there's a full match or a possible match. And it also provides a link to a client merge tool. So whenever a client is full matched, and that basically means it finds someone else in the system with the same name and the same 9-digit social security number, you'll basically, users or anybody entering data will get this message here with a client merge tool here. Possible matches are basically anybody with the same name and or same date of birth or gender. They kind of get this message here. Now, at that point in time, users who aren't privy to the client merge tool, because it kind of allows the open merging of everybody. So we kind of want to develop something that users could have access to, that when you click on this client merge tool, it takes them basically to the client merge tool. Instead of being open, it only provides them with the duplicates of the client. So it kind of provides them with a limited access to this tool. And the reason I want to bring this up is, we didn't really train as much on the actual merge process. It's pretty intuitive. It takes, we kind of explain it walks people through the process of, selecting the best possible data and kind of going through the process if they're household-based. But this is more of a manager feature, and you guys are more familiar with it. So until users get used to this process, they might come to you for questions. And once you click on that merge tool, it works exactly like the merge tool we showed you before, except instead of you selecting the clients, the system selects the clients. That's why we wanted to just kind of mention this during this process, because it is something new that your users are going to come across in their data collection travels.
If you haven't figured it out yet, we are trying to really split apart the roles for everyday users versus managers. We don't want agency managers getting bogged down with every possible little thing. We want the users to be able to do a lot of this information on their own, however, keep it controlled so that you guys can focus on more actual agency manager-ish kind of things.
Now, within the standalone tune, we always have what we call the duplicate client report. You can run it at any time. Basically provides full and possible matches. Basically, the matches will be here. If they have, basic algorithm, same social security number or name, date of birth, gender matches. We actually recommend running it any time just to see how your agency is looking. I also want to show that kind of conjunction, if an intake worker comes up and says, hey, I have this client merge tool, you have this report that you can run basically to provide you with a little bit more information before you take on work with them on the task. Hopefully, like Dan said, trying to split the roles, hopefully after a while they'll become self-sufficient with being able to do these merges instead of putting them all on agency manager personnel. Client delete tool, that's basically been in the system for a while. A lot of people like it and use it. It's available for pretty much all users. Clients should only be deleted or removed. They've been mistakenly entered or duplicated, not because they finished or exited their agency or program. I think everybody's got that distinction. As with a lot of the functionality of the merges and everything, once a client is deleted, they're pretty much gone forever. Cannot be retrieved, so please use this tool with care. Still provided within the tool sections, again, available for all users. You basically enter in search information, find the people that you find that you're looking to delete. You select them, and then the system does, because it is a permanent process, actually makes you go through about 4 or 5 screens of, hey, you sure this is the guy? You sure this is the guy? So you should be really sure of who you're deleting. And then when you get to the end of the process, it pretty much resets the process for you to do again. One new tool that we have released into the system and is available for agency managers is a data export tool. Finally, we've gotten that into the system. Provides a tool to export an agency's data out in a CSV format. It can be exported in a number of different formats. When clicking on this tool, it kind of brings you to an intermediate screen where you can export data for all programs, or you can select a specific program, and basically it exports a plethora of information about client information, program information, inventory site. It's got about, I think about 9 or 10 different CVS extracts that basically pour all the information. And it also provides a configurable date range to send out that data. We basically wrote it to conform specifically to the HUD's latest CSV format, version 3.2. So it can be sent out to, I don't know, other systems that use it. And it was basically developed for our SSVF people. They actually, and also in conjunction with some of our, as we bring VA-funded people on board, basically they require extracts on a monthly basis to be sent up to the VA repository, that sort of thing. So this is one of the main reasons that actually can thank those people for why it got in there, but everybody can use it and is available for that. We are planning to look into an XML release as well, but that's planned for the future.
This is actually a really perfect example of the reason for each agency needing a privacy policy, and this is also why we've limited this feature to agency managers. The privacy policy that DCD developed covers PA-HMIS. So we can't presume to speak for each agency. This is something that your agency's privacy policy would need to cover. What happens with data from HMIS once it's put into a different electronic format or even printed out, a paper format, something that DCD's privacy policy can't control. So this is stuff, when you export data from the system, please be careful. It'll be a very useful tool for you, but it will have extremely sensitive information on it, so don't just, willy-nilly hand it out to everybody.
Yeah, good point, good point. Okay, that about does it. Just got a couple documentation housekeeping notes. Everybody hopefully is aware of our website, www.newpa.com/PAHMIS. It's got a ton of information. Can also be found within our gold action menu. Just click on the link. It's got a whole bunch of publication, documentation, training libraries. Hopefully by the system release, it's not up there now, but by the system release, which we are planning December 12th, it's a Wednesday. We hope to have it up that afternoon. That's when all these new features will be in there. We're going to have the client consent forms, the new system user, all of our privacy policies, agency participation agreements up there by that time. They're not up there yet. I want to make sure everybody understands that. Hopefully it'll be up there soon. We always talk about the feature guides. There's just so much that we've added to the system. We put out a whole bunch of pages of feature guides that we've gone over in other trainings. Just want to make sure everybody's aware of them. They'll be up there hopefully as soon as possible, by the release. Broken down into these basic areas. Definitely take a look at those for specific areas of interest. And that pretty much does it. Takes care of the agency management training. We appreciate everybody coming. If anybody has any questions about these features, don't hesitate to contact myself and Steve at the phone numbers or email address above. Always thank you for your time. Have a great day. And we're going to go ahead and stick around for a few minutes, see what questions anybody has. Thanks. We have some questions here, I guess, about the data export. Just want to kind of throw out some basic ones I think I could answer. Someone asked what's, it's actually CSV. It basically stands for comma separated value. It's kind of a subset of Excel. When you do export it, when you open it up and you have Excel on your computer, it will load. It kind of looks like an Excel spreadsheet, but that is basically the standard export template or format that HUD uses, and we basically wanted to follow that HUD format. It only goes into Excel. We didn't do any MS Access or anything like that. We also had a question, why don't we have an import? Unfortunately, we are planning it. We just, unfortunately, with all the things we're dealing with right now, we just haven't gotten to it. Kind of one thing at a time. You know, we got the export. It's kind of on a need basis because for those VA people needed it for their exports. Hopefully, once we get through all the things we need, we'll be able to add those luxuries like the import and export. So it's definitely on our plate.